Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beach Court Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Jackson Ford, joining the pod right off a top 16 finish with Dragapult Charizard at the Portland Regional Championships. He's been a Charizard enjoyer and a success story all season, so we'll be able to hear his story of success at all levels of the game, and he'll give us insight into Dragapult Charizard for us of this format, and as one of the decks to watch out for into our Destined Rivals format. We'll also be recapping the results of the Portland Regional Championships, bring you back to Crispin's Corner, and we'll also wrap up with our newest segment, Breaking on Bourbon Street. We built the NAIC in a few weeks, prepping you on a few of the decks that we're looking out for, and some other parts about New Orleans that we just enjoy. So I'm Maddox Corcoran, your guest host, while Eric is out another week. I'm joined, as always, by Parker Greenwald. Parker, how's it going this week? How was your weekend?
Doing all right. Did you top four this Portland's or
I did not. I did not make it to Portland. I thought about running it back, but I'm lucky I'm in a good spot for Worlds to not run it back. Was rooting on John Ing to go back to back, since if he beat me last time, then wanted to repeat that. So he didn't make top cut, but missed out. But yeah, no Portland for me this time. But I think you did play some good Pokemon and judged some cups as well down here in
did.
Jacksonville.
So yeah, at Nakama's Wednesday, I decided to play Terror Box for the first time. Like I've literally never played a game with that deck, and it's like kind of fun, I guess, for like the first two turns. Then you're like, oh crap, I need top deck and Noctowl, or like I don't know.
Yeah, that's the
But
thing. It's like the first two turns, you're just like popping off. You just like everything
yeah,
you want, and then you get
like
Iono'd, and it's like, I hope I hit what I need off Mew Fez, right?
yeah, basically. But yeah, I managed to go undefeated, got first there, and then Thursday I played Dragapult Dusknoir, and I met you the last round. We were both the only 4-0s, so that was fun. And then
We didn't
yeah,
play the final. We didn't play the final game because we didn't really need
no,
to. But we did play some retro after. We were playing some 2014
did
format. That's what Parker
some
has built, and as usual, he cooked me. I was
yeah
playing my Flareon Vengeance box. He was playing
versus Landy
Landy
Bats.
Bats, and the bastard took me down. I got the mine down early too, and he was like comboing. I go end him, and then he just pops off, and bat scoop up bat KO my
Nah,
mime
we gotta
attack.
play game 3
All
still.
right, we gotta get a game 3, so we'll
Yeah,
get to that at some point. So,
yeah, but
well, cool.
yeah. Saturday, had to we were supposed to go see Alex's daughter, but she ended up having a fever, so we ended up going to Daytona for the whole day, and I was reminded that Daytona is actually a really cool city. It's just an hour away from us. Bunch of stuff to do. Like the flea market there is massive. Like
Awesome.
like I think we were there like 2 hours and we didn't even see all of it. But yeah, and then judged the League Cup on Sunday. Cool stuff. Um, Surprisingly small crowd. We only had 12 masters, and Daniel ended up winning it with Dragapult. Dragapult's strongest local soldier, I guess. That's
There
like
you go.
the thing he's been on. But
Hey,
yeah,
Dragon Ball's just a good deck right now. It's the deck to play that a lot of people are
it
going to ball his
is.
cups with. So shout out to Daniel. Props to you for winning the cup there. And yeah, the Beach Core podcast, we're always a big fan of beaches, whether it's Jacksonville Beach or Daytona Beach or all these different spots. On my side, I had a little more of a low-key weekend. Didn't do too much Pokemon, but did go to the challenge we talked about with Parker. I played Dragapult as well, just played the classic, I call it the 4x4 Dragapult, just because you play like 4 boss, 4 research, 4 Iono, 4 Brox. And it's just like, it's just pretty straightforward, consistent build. I did tech in the Maractus, which, won me, which won me a game against a Raging Bolt when I fell a little bit behind, was able to kind of stall and use that to kind of rebuild some momentum and spread damage in the right spot. So, cool option to have there. But yeah, having fun playing Dragapult, and really just different decks heading into this format. So, but anyways, well, the deck to still look out for is our Portland winning deck, not other than Gardevoir EX. I wonder how many, I guess we only have one more major left. We don't really have that many more majors left in this format, and Gardevoir is really going to win most of them. But of course, in Portland, we saw Michael Davidson get his first major win as a master, piloting Gardevoir EX, playing a 60-card mirror against Henry Chow in the finals. So Henry Chow almost with the 4 regionals in one season, which winning three, like winning one major in a season right now is just so tough anyways, just because of how big the tournaments are. Winning 2 in one season, incredibly difficult. Winning 3, unheard of. 4 is almost legendary. I mean, I think Jimmy
That is
Darvis is the only
legendary.
one who's ever done it before, right?
Did he win 4? I thought he only won 3. Or I think he
That's what it
won
said on the
3
stream.
regionals and an IC or something.
Okay.
Something like that.
But yeah, but 4 majors in a
could be
season,
wrong.
incredible. And Henry Chow to be in another finals, lost his first finals actually, but in a 60 card mirror against Michael Davidson, who was a believer on the deck with him. So again, Gardevoir is the deck to beat. You know, and again, the deck that's still around, I think is gonna be running the format. You know, I think Shaman makes things a little harder. You know, the Marty's Grim Snarl deck that's coming out might give it a little bit of a hard time, but for now, I mean, Guardy is still the deck to beat, and you know, this weekend was no exception. So we did see a little bit of innovation. Henry Chow again cooking up the winning list of that 60 card mirror. But they actually went away from the Brixty. And anyone who didn't see our interview with Brent Tonneson last week, definitely make sure you check that out. We dive into a lot of his Gardevoir philosophy and just like his philosophy as a player. It was a really good time talking with them. But Henry Chow and Michael Davidson opted to play a Arvin build, kind of similar to what did well in the Brazilian group did well with last weekend. And again, playing the, you know, some Arvin's 3 TM Evos and included a 1/1 Rapska line. So, Parker, when you heard that Rapska was back in Gardevoir, what was your first gut reaction?
I was like, I'm always so iffy on that card because, like, if you prize one piece, it's useless, and then, like, I don't know, it doesn't have a lot of health, but you can't snipe stuff when it's active, so, or not active, like on the field.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's the list is cool. I'm looking at it, like 3 Evos. Like, that's a lot. Like you're definitely getting evolution off.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think it was in the prismatic format, there were a few lists that were playing more Evos because again, they're going to a lower Arvin count and playing higher counts of Iono and saying, since items aren't doing me much good, I just want to be able to find Evo off of Ionos type of thing. So Michael Davidson prized all 3 Evos in game 1 of finals, which was hilarious
I
to
see
see.
that. That's crazy.
Most people were like, "Oh, he's no chance," but he won the game, so it made it happen. So I think the Rapska is interesting. Like Gardevoir already has a pretty good time in the Dragapult. Obviously, Rapska helps that even more and like prevents, you know, them from doing plays of like, you know, gust your Monkey Dory and then put damage on your attacker. So now you don't even have that option anymore. But I also think Rapska almost like more so for like the Guardian Mirror. Like
Yeah,
you
the
just can't,
mirror.
you know, you can no longer scream tail your opponent's monkeys. But the Rapska does like clog up the board a little bit. You know, you have to Evo out a Rapska instead of like a second Curlia, which, you know, Henry Childless did play 2 Curlias. So a little interesting to see. But ultimately, like, you know, hey, the deck is good. The deck works. They did include the Mew EX as well, which we actually saw some interactions with of in top 4 being able to threaten. Right, we see Baby Bolts everywhere. You know, you can genome hacking, copy your Baby Bolt, and however much basic energy you have on your Mew, you can snipe for that much damage. Plus, add some Monkey Dory damage, and I mean, you can pretty easily, you know, one shot a
Chaos stuff
Fez,
on the
right?
bench.
So I
Yeah.
mean, so pretty solid there. So again, congrats to Michael Davis and Henry Chow for cooking up a great list and making it back into finals with it. So Parker made a big deal that, you know, we did not respect Raging Bolt a lot this past week on our tier list. We did respect Raging Bolt more. Christian Fawn not with the 3rd place with it. Caleb Rogerson, but the Terror Box making it back in the top 4. So Parker, maybe keep picking up the Terror Box if it's still doing well.
Yeah.
And then from the rest of it there, I mean, we saw a good mix of decks. We saw a lot of Dragapult making up, you know, down to our 14-person ASIM. We saw 4 other Dragapult decks. We saw 3 Flareons, another Terror Box. Cali White played Piper Lapine playing another Gardevoir deck. But then the big surprise, Ray Chen, shout out to them, with the Toad Scroll EX. Toad Scroll EX, Teal Mask Ogrepon. I mean,
Oh,
they cooked up something fierce there.
there's
So
something fierce.
I mean, Parker, have you been itching to play Ray's deck yet?
No, but it's just funny to me because like Grayson at our league, this was like his main deck for like a long time. Like I don't know. I mean, I was like, yeah, it's good, but it's not like amazing. Like I don't know. I don't know. I mean, 12th at a regional, it's way better than I've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, we look at some of the matchups that Ray had. I mean, Ray's only lost. I mean, they started 7-0, lost round 8 to a Dragapult Dusknoir, and then lost in ASIM to Caleb Rogerson on the Terror Box. So I heard that game went kind of quickly. I think that Ray had trouble setting up and just Terror Box able to kind of run over things. But other than that, I mean, winning against Gardevoirs, you beat Miloslav on stream, our
Yeah, he
LEIC champion.
destroyed him. Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I mean, really cool to see this deck in action. And I think again, like we've talked about this on the pod before, but like so much, even when you're playing a rogue or off the wall deck, if you know it so well and you find a time when your deck is well positioned, get a little bit of matchup luck, get things to go your way and are playing well when the opportunity's there, then you can have a deep run like this. Like that's something that's
Yeah.
totally feasible. Grass is a good weakness, and grass is a good weakness to have. You're hitting for a lot of damage. You have some turn one like donk potential with this deck.
Yeah.
And it's playing 4 E-Switch, 4 Teal Mask Ogrepon, Mute,
Yay.
Fez, Squawk, Latias, plays a Badoo, and also Slime Mold Colony. Right, Raychen, Raychen, I'm sure probably bodied the Goldango that they played because they could never superior, and you gotta hit 300 to get rid of a Toad Scrolly X, who can one shot you back if they have enough energy in the play. So definitely really cool to see, a rogue kind of archetype like this having such high success. And again, shout out Grayson at Locals, who's been the Toad Scroll champion for so long. This is your time. Maybe keep at it. Try to sneak a spot in the NAIC and go on a deep run with it. So yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, a lot of stacked players here in top 8. Some of the names we didn't mention. Owen Dalgard back for another top 8. John
Back to
Ang,
back.
again, John Ang back-to-back top cuts at Portland. Wasn't able to defend the title, but he did good still here. And then Callie White and Bass Lashfred, who we've also had on the pod before, also rounding out the rest of that asymmetrical cut. So yeah, I mean, fantastic to see all this great talent in top cut, such a variety of decks, except for finals, of course, which was a mirror. So Parker, I know you mentioned there were a couple other like cool decks that you wanted to highlight. I think first of all, the big one, I guess before we jump to some of those, we saw Enzorark again, a contingency of top players playing lots of Enzorark.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
Lucas Singh ran it back. We had Liam Halliburton also on it. I think the people really believe in the deck now.
yeah, when you're expecting a meta of a lot of Gardevoir and Dragapults, this deck is just very well positioned, right? The Ensdar Manaton's Flame Body Cannon, it will just put so much pressure on. You've been able to gust a Gardevoir EX and one-shot it with Enzorark. I mean, not a lot of decks can do that right now, so it's pretty cool to see. And again, just the incredible consistency of the trade engine. So, and Lucas and Liam playing a pretty similar build to what Lucas made asymmetrical cut with in Milwaukee. I think it was just one card off. I don't exactly know which card that is. I think it added the Devolution was the new inclusion there. But yeah, really cool to see this deck continuing success. Again, I think very meta dependent, so curious to see how much it'll continue. Shout out to Liam Halliburton and Cameron Chenoy and a couple other top players playing it well. Yeah, and then now to the fun stuff, right? We talk about some of the fun stuff in day one on Crispin's Corner, but here there's a few other spice. First of all, I got to highlight at 64th place, we have Hydreigon EX back.
Thank you.
Doing well at regionals. Shout out Nate Newton. Again, this list right here, the main standout, we've seen Hydreigon do some success before, but this one included a 2/2 Enzorark line for some extra trade and some extra consistency to get set up. So what do you think about this deck, Parker?
I like it. I do like it. I think they could have played one Reshiram in there or something, just so like you're playing darks already. I mean, like it's an extra attacker in case, stuff hits the fan. But yeah, the 2 different Pidgeys is pretty interesting.
Yeah, playing the 2/1/2 Pidgeot line along with the Enzorark plus the Hydreigon plus like Fez. I mean, you can see so many cards in a turn if you're doing this right. You go Fez for 3, trade for 4, quick search.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, I think in a deck where you need to pair up your Crispin and your counter gain and your Neo Upper and like all these pieces. like Rare Candy Hydreigon, like probably a deck with like enough pieces like this to let you actually see everything is kind of what you need. So I also like they included the Lily's Clefairy, a little extra insurance against Dragapults.
Yeah.
And there's another surprise attacker. Again, you're playing Crispin, you're playing Psychics already. Might as well just slap in a Lily's Clefairy.
Exactly.
See another deck. I do want to shout out to 65th place Aiden Koos, back with Roaring Moon to Dunsparce. They had some bad luck, unfortunately. They didn't quite get the finish they're looking for, but shout out to him nonetheless. We saw the return of Future Box. Really, in this day and age, Chad Beaton at 143rd place. We have a straight up like old school ancient box, with the electric generators, 4 electric generators that include the Iron Thorns.
Future.
What was that?
You mean Future Box?
Yeah, Future Box. What did I say?
You said ancient.
Oh, Ancient Box. Did Ancient Box show up at this tournament? I don't know. This is Future Box. Sorry, Future Box believers. But yeah, I think a cool build, did include the Mew and Fez in there. Sometimes you don't always see those pieces because you can't find them off the Techno Radar, but include the one nest ball to find it. I think a very teched out list included the Black Belts training. You have your Iron Hands hitting for 140 with a booster. You add in 4 Iron Crowns, you're up to 220. Out of Black Belts training, you're hitting 260. Just going to amp you very much, your Goldango. I mean, some of the plays you can do are just absolutely ridiculous with this Black Belt. So I think really, really fun inclusion there, and even a Pal Pad to recycle it. So I think like cool to see this list again. A neat archetype getting some success again. Prime Catcher is the aspect of choice. Yeah, shout out Chad.
Yeah.
So, but I'm curious, was there any ancient box at all anywhere around?
I didn't see it when I looked, but
there's one ancient box.
Moon.
Oh, Andy's saying it. Well, it didn't make day 2, but 431 at the ancient box. Shout out to them with the Great Tusk Mill included. So
hey, no Great Tusk at day 2. I was hoping to see at least one of the elephants in there.
As a new shout out, 175th place, we have Espathra Frostlass. Jose Luis Sanchez. Again, Espathra Frostlass. But yeah, just wild to see. I mean, I think really actually this is more of a Badoo Monkey Dory deck, right? It's playing 3 Badoo, 3/3 Frostlass line, 3 Monkey Dory, but included a 2/2 Espathra line. I think just give you a little bit of extra attacking options. I mean, this deck is way teched out. We see the Maractus in here for additional corner stall options. See the Unfair Stamp is the aspect of choice. But just like really consistent, 4 Research, 4 Arven, 4 Iono, 3 Counter Catcher. You got a Gravity Gemstone, Bravery Charm, 2 TM Devo. Of course, Espathra EX's a Psy Ball attack, 30 damage for 1 Psychic Energy, plus this 30 damage for each energy onto both active Pokemon. And with its Dazzling Gaze ability, attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon to cost 1 colorless more. So really just put on a lot of pressure. And again, just making things awkward for your opponent. And when so many decks are just built to like barely scrape by and get like your 2 energy on your Dragapult.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, worst case scenario, if you give them items, but they can't attack, still doing pretty good.
Exactly. So mixing in the Devo here. Again, just like Frostlass, Monkey Dory, Badoo. And I think like Espathra just giving you a few more options as well to help close out games. So cool to see that. See, another deck we did want to highlight was, what was it? So unfortunately, this absolute legend, Daniel Dempster. So he made day 2, but had a work emergency. So he won his round 1 in day 2, but then actually gave his opponent the win and scooped. But he was playing Badoo Magmortar.
Hell yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know what Magmortar does, which is probably most people, Magmortar from Journey Together has the Magma Surge ability. It says during a Pokemon checkup, put 3 more damage counters on your opponent's burned Pokemon. So he played a 4/4 Magmortar line to go with 3 Badoo, double Latias, and then 2 Volcanion EX to use its Scalding Steam ability to burn the opponent's active while you're in the active. So you have, 4 Magmortar in play, plus the burn. You're dealing 140 of just burn damage. Plus Badoo item logging, plus Defiance ban. I think this deck is really just one that's like literally annoying your opponent off the table. No more like Poison Mochi package, but we have Volcanion EX and Magmortar just triggering burns. And I think it's funny because I think you kind of know that their strategies can be to try to trap something. So he's playing 4 Switch, 2 Surfer, 4 Jet Energy, 1 Penny. So, like, nothing's ever getting trapped. You're just continually item blocking and burning the whole time. Um, this deck's kind of awesome. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very curious to see how Daniel would have done had he been able to play all of day 2. So, um, yeah, just really funny to see. Definitely a deck to check out and, sleeve up at locals or play online or something. But
Heck
yeah, just
yeah.
really funny. So, and those are some of the decks we saw that we wanted to highlight. I think I also want to talk a little about day 2 percentages and like how the meta shook out in day 2 because we don't have a real graphic for that. So for our day 2 percentage, Dragapult led the charge at 23%. Again, kind of a big number, but kind of also not a surprise. We just know it's very, very good. Um, Gardevoir falling behind at 16%, Raging Bolt at 13, Terrorbox at 10.5%. I think we're finally seeing that Terrorbox spike some of us were talking about. Flareon Box at 9.5%, and then Joltik Box at 9% to round things out. Other than that, we have Goldango and Enzork, and then even Charizard all below 5%. So, pardon me, what's your takeaways from this, like, day 2 meta?
I mean, it's somewhat what I expected. The Goldango was like a little bit of surprise. It just like fell out of favor, but I feel like there's so many people like still playing like maybe like the Dragapult variant of it. And I did look at the Goldangos like for the tournament, and most of them were the Dragapults. Only 4 of those Goldango decks, so was it 4 out of 14 were playing not Dragapult.
Hmm.
Um so like is Dragapult carrying the deck or is just everyone ignoring it for now? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I think most like players playing Goldango have like chosen Dragapult as the best way for it. But again, a little bit of underwhelming results, even for a deck that saw as low of a play rate. Right? Goldango was down to uh the day 1 percentage was 7%, and it still converted negatively down to like 5%. So not the greatest showing for a deck that has seen so much success, and I think has really boasted like a strong Dragapult matchup. I mean, what do you think's happened here? Is it just other decks coming into the meta that aren't as good for it?
I don't know. I think like part of the people that are they kind of listen to the influential people on Twitter and like everyone says like basically if you're not playing Dragapult or Gardevoir, like you're not playing to win the tournament kind of thing. Like I don't know. Like Goldango's good. Like you have a chance to beat everything in the room with it, which I guess like every deck is kind of like that in everything. But I don't know.
Very true. Yeah, I think. I mean, again, I know Goldango and Raging Bolt, I think, are a little bit similar, and they're both like that big one shot type of deck. I think for the first time in a while, like we've seen Raging Bolt like evenly convert. Raging Bolt day 1 was 13% of the meta, and day 2 was 13% of the meta. I think as a deck that's been hated on or is said isn't well positioned, it's seeing even conversion rate after even some positive conversion rates, like with the higher play rate, is kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
I think the big standout was like, Terrorbox really, jumping back up in terms of, a high finish, right? 6% in day 1, up to a 10.5 in day 2. I mean, the idea of Terrorbox was
Somewhat.
always like to counter the meta. I think for Atlanta, so many people saw the success of it in Japan and just thought it was the best deck. But turns out that when you're ready for it, when you're ready for a counter deck, it's not really that good.
Yeah. I think it's just to try to have it so your opponent doesn't play the game as much as you can.
Mhm.
Water pond or Pikachuing their true prizer first. Like you probably win in the game. Unless they got like the perfect counterplay to it. But like yeah, I don't know. It's like it's finally on the come up though. Like I think the Atlanta meta when everyone was predicting it was like very like somewhat hostile towards it. But now it's
Definitely.
just like, oh well, the format's slower now, so maybe it's better.
Yeah, it's true. And I think, when it compared to like when it first succeeded in Japan, it was like the surprise deck. I remember, I think, Rahul had talked to us about how it was like, Wednesday night, it was like, hey, someone played this at a city league and the tournament's on Friday. Like, let's try this, right? I mean, it came up like so quickly and how people were trying this, and it came more of a surprise deck when it's like a very known quantity and something people are ready for. And then people are building their deck around that. They're testing the matchups. They're knowing, how do I recover from a water pond? What's my best way to stall around a water pond? And everyone know these ways when, the original players of the deck or the original opponents against the deck didn't really know what to expect. So it's a very, very a good point there. All right, Parker, anything else from Portland that we want to recap before we kick over to our interview?
There was one more deck, and it's not like that the deck is like super cool, but so like there is an Archaludon Zoroark in day 2, which I don't know actually if that's been a thing like
Yeah,
in day 2 before.
it hasn't quite seen a lot of success. If there's been a few around,
Okay.
I've seen this before. This is Justin Romero at 68th place
Yes.
with the
Mhm.
Archaludon Zoroark. This
Yeah.
one I've seen pretty heavy investments into. I've seen even like as high like a 4/4 line of Zoroark to
Yeah,
support 4/4
Zoroark.
Duraludon, like Serrano as the supporter choice. But here a little bit of a more condensed build. 4/4 Archaludon, the 2/2 Zoroark as support, included the Iron Bundle and even the Halucha tech. Um, is that just to
Yeah.
hit 230
I guess
on like an
so,
Iron
yeah.
Hands? Like I mean, like it seems a little odd. Not gonna lie. Like the
Yeah.
black belt's training. I mean, 270 isn't really relevant on anything. I'm not sure.
You could Hawlucha and then scoop up Cyclone and then Hawlucha and counter catcher Bolt, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know about that one,
Oh, he
but
doesn't even play counter catcher. I don't
no
know.
counter catcher. I mean, boss and scoop up cyclone it.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, the Halucha is interesting. I'd be curious to hear Justin's thoughts on the main use cases for that. Yeah, just a solid deck again, and also being able to just play the 3 jamming tower. When your deck is simple and just plays research and sets up your attacker and starts swinging for good damage and you're 300 HP. Oh, Halucha is probably for Pikachu. Seeing,
Oh,
so if they
you're
go
right.
Pikachu, if
Yep,
they go
yep.
Pikachu you, then you can go boss or bundle even, and then
Bundle,
ping it to
ping
KO it.
it,
Actually, yeah, the
boss.
bundle Halucha, actually that makes sense there.
Okay, sure,
Right,
yeah,
we
yeah.
cooked it up live.
Yep,
So
yep.
Justin, let us know if that's what you were thinking or not. So all right, well, that's gonna do it for our Portland coverage. Up next, we have Jackson Ford right off the top 16 at Portland with Dragapult Charizard. We're here all about his insight into the deck. And also, again, Dragapult Charizard won Champions League over in our Destined Rivals format. So if this is a deck to watch out for NAIC, then we're going to hear it from Jackson first. So we'll jump right in.
Hi everyone, my name is Eric Ridgway. I'm the host of the Beach Court Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And if you're enjoying it, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe on this video on YouTube. It really help out the podcast a lot. We've got more episodes, highlights, and more coming your way. Thanks for listening. And now back to the show.
Or welcome back on the Beach Court Podcast. We're thrilled to be joined by our special guest, Jackson Ford. Not only NAIC champion in seniors and 2-time regional champ, most recently top 8 at LAIC with Secret Box Charizard, put him on the map as a master, and then most recently a top 16 with Dragapult Charizard of Portland. Jackson, how you doing? How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Thank you for having me on. I mean, it's been a pretty exciting week getting back. My Charizard Limitless page is getting a little bit more filled up. So
There we go.
doing pretty good. Looking forward to NAIC as well.
There you go. And I know lots of others looking forward to NAIC as well. And, you're the Dragapult Charizard guy now, Charizard for a while. Excited to hear all about what you have to say about your deck and, looking forward to NAIC because I know a lot of people are gearing up for that as well. And even me personally, I'm like, hey, is Dragapult Charizard a good play for NAIC? So we'll let you get into all that. But first, we want to get to know you a little bit. First, I want you to just tell us your name, where you're from, and how long you've been playing Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jackson. I'm 21 years old. I've been playing Pokemon since I was 7 years old. So that's 2010. Lived in Calgary originally, so I grew up there. For anyone who's familiar with Calgary, you should know that no one plays Pokemon there. So I didn't get to travel to as many tournaments as a kid as now I'm living in Toronto as an adult. So it's been very, very exciting. I've been to, I think, 8 world championships, with the first one being in 2013. And, I've done well in every age division. I've also struggled in every age division. So it's been kind of fun to grow up throughout the game, do well, struggle, and just grow as a player.
Definitely. And super excited to hear about your growth through the game and I mean success at all levels of the game now at this point. And now living in Toronto, I'm definitely jealous of your local scene. I mean, the amount of times I'm sure you go to locals in Toronto and it's just like, oh yeah, this could be top 8 at a regional anywhere type of thing.
Yeah, you go to and so, I mean, just small shout out to my sponsor, but more so like Banana Games. We just have so many good players coming, so you can go on a Wednesday night and you'll see like Christian Labella, Piper Lapine, like Lucas Zing, and like even like recently like Michael Meal and Julian. They've both been playing Raging
Mhm.
Bolt. If you've been following the results, so you can like see all of them on like a Wednesday night just randomly, and it's kind of crazy because you get people that are new to the game and they'll like ask you like, oh, how long you been playing Pokemon, and then they just play against like 3 regional champions.
That used
It
to be
definitely,
Orlando, kind of.
way back in the day down here in Florida. So we're camping up. But I mean, right now Toronto is definitely like the spot right now for just so much top talent. And I've heard a lot of good things about Banana Games. So awesome to see.
Yes.
I know you've been playing for quite a while. You said since 2010. So I mean, that's a lot of like Pokemon you've played, a lot of decks you've played. What'd you say is your favorite deck you've ever played? And is it Secret
That,
Box
that's
Charizard?
That's a good question. And Charizard honestly is a contender for it, but I think if you ask me the same question in 2 years, it might be Charizard. I don't think I fully appreciate it just yet. Um, so for now, I'm gonna go with Blastoise Keldeo.
Ooh.
That was my first World Championships deck. It was also my only World's top cut. And I just mean, I just love that deck. If anyone's played Chen Pao and you like Chen Pao, right? It's the same style of deck, right? But the cards are very, very pretty. I had like a max rarity version of that deck with like the tropical beaches and all of that. Um, and it is really, really fun to play. It's like playing Gardevoir and you like grasping draw into Candy Gardevoir, but you use tropical beach and then you draw into Skyla and a Blastoise, and then you just nuke your opponent with the Keldeo, and there's nothing they can do about it.
That's cool. And if anyone's seen Jackson's Twitter, he does tend to bling out his deck. So that's a bit of a common
I mean,
theme. You
that's an
always,
understatement.
yeah. Yeah, tends to bling out his deck is a little bit of an understatement, that's for sure. So, well, we talk a lot about Pokemon, but do want to hear, what's one of your favorite, what's your favorite thing to do if you're not playing Pokemon?
That's a great question. Well, it's the summer now, and I love going on walks. I love biking, so generally just spending time outside in the summer, trying to, get my steps in, go exercise. And biking's really nice. It's not as nice in Toronto, but in Calgary they have some nice bike trails. So I would tend to go on like hour and a half bike rides in the summer, just
Oh, wow.
feeling the wind, stuff like that. I'm sure it's pretty nice in Florida, but in Toronto it's not as nice for biking.
Yeah, I mean, in Florida, you just run into the problem of it's just too hot. Like once it's summer, it's like, man, I almost like don't want to be outside. So, but
Yeah,
we are
you
pretty
ride your
lucky to
bike
live.
in Florida and get the mouthful of mosquitoes and all this other stuff.
Okay, well, I'm not too familiar with the mosquito scene there. We don't really have those in Toronto as much.
It's a good problem. I mean, and are you even able to do anything outside in the winter, or is that why you like are able to top 8 LAIC because you're just like inside grinding all day? Like,
Oh my gosh, you're so right. It hits like mid-September, and there's
uh,
just like a huge like block of snow. I actually remember like the day before EUIC, we had like 3 foot of snow. And so we hop on a flight to Montreal, and we get to Montreal, and it's actually like even worse. There's like 4 feet of snow on the ground, unironically, and it's like, uh, I don't know what the conversion of Fahrenheit is, but for Celsius, it was like -20 something in February, and our entire trip was just ruined. So you sometimes get those like unexpected snowfalls, and yeah, you're stuck inside playing Pokemon, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do like getting outside as much as I
mhm.
can.
Well, cool. Well, glad you got the summer coming up, getting to get outside a lot. Um, and yeah, I want to kind of move on. You have again a pretty rich history in the game again since playing since 2010, and success, right? You said top cut at Worlds in younger divisions, plus IC champion, regional champions, all this, and it now continues to see success as a master. So I mean, what would you say is like one thing that you've learned like growing up through the different levels of the game that has like helped you to remain a strong competitor, throughout the different age divisions all the way to today, as a master?
That's a great question. So I think consistency has got to be one of the most important things. I think you see that people playing Pokemon spend a lot more time playing Pokemon than they used to. You could really see people show up and do well at like the one tournament a year they go to pretty frequently. But pretty much everyone at the top level now is spending so much more time playing Pokemon. So I found for myself that I honestly just do best when I put more reps in.
Mhm.
And it's pretty discouraging to put more reps in when you are doing poorly. So the number one thing about that is just kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and knowing that if you just continue to practice, you will get better. And I think that's a really, really important takeaway, especially for the people that are just getting into it and want to get better, but they don't really know where to start. I think you really just got to continue playing more Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, what is that? I know you mentioned playing a lot, right? And you've seen a lot of success. I mean, has your practice habits like changed over the years? Where you find yourself playing Pokemon more now, or like if you're not playing, 10 hours a week, then you feel less prepared for the tournament than others type of thing. I mean, like, what does that feel like in practice?
Yeah, honestly, the tournaments that I did the worst at this year were tournaments where I just didn't put in time. So the number one thing for me, is getting like the theory and then applying the theory. So like if I want to make a deck work, I'm gonna first like come up with the ideas for the deck list, why every card has its inclusion, and then I'm gonna like put it to the test. So even if I'm not like necessarily playing games, like if I don't have enough time to, hop on like PTCG Live and throw 10 games in, I'm always like constantly like thinking about like the lists and like the specific applications and the theory. I know that like some people like Raymond Long specifically, he's not playing as much this year, but he was like a king of this where he would have like theoretical game plans for every single matchup written down, and he wouldn't have even like played that many games in the matchup. But as long as you're like consistently like putting in that kind of work, I think that you see results. And so I had two really bad tournament results in EUIC in Vancouver, and honestly, like I can mostly attribute that to just not putting the time in.
When you test, do you like just test the one deck? I'm playing this. I'm 100% on this, or do you try to play everything? Because I try to play everything and have like a general game plan of like what could stop them, that kind of thing.
Right. Honestly, like I think it depends on the format. So if you're playing like Silver Tempest Lugia format, you can afford to play everything because there's only like 5 decks in the format, maybe.
Yeah.
But the format's so wide these days. I don't feel like you have time to test, 11, 12 different decks. So yes, I would like to, but oftentimes I find that I'm just gonna, do a little bit of reading on the deck, maybe analyze the deck list, look at like labs.limitless is now an incredibly useful tool for looking at like the win rates for different matchups because it's not just like online players that are just loading up a deck randomly. So there's a lot of really useful tools where you can gain a lot of information on a deck without actually playing the deck. So it's a little bit more narrow than that. I mean, obviously I've played Charizard a bunch. It's a little bit more selective in that sense where I've obviously put more reps in with those decks, but I will try to at least like put in some time with like the top 3 to 4 decks. So I have a lot of reps in on like straight Dragapult, Gardevoir, and Dragapult Charizard, obviously, but I also put a lot of time on Trapagos. Actually, I really wanted that deck to be good, but then Gardevoir and Dragapult were just too broken to play it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Again, great to hear some insight into your testing process. And of course, all that testing process is going to keep bringing you back to Charizard time and time again, it sounds like. So, I think do want to talk a little bit about that. Again, just your transition to Charizard. Again, I think the big people, if they didn't know your name, they definitely learned it when they saw Secret Box as your ace spec in Charizard at LAIC. Big finish there. I mean, and I've seen a lot of success with the Charizard Secret Box since then. I think like what do you enjoy about Charizard as a deck or just as a card or as a Pokemon, that keeps bringing you back to it, ever since LAIC? Because if you looked, I think every single limitless entry since then has been some variant of Charizard.
Yeah. Like I said, I bombed 2 tournaments. So the 2 tournaments I didn't play Charizard at.
Oh, really?
I played 2 at both times. So there might be a little bit of allegation there for being a Charizard one trick this season. But the
You
number
played
one
some
thing
Tina
for
and stuff
me.
before. We know you have some history in Lost
Oh
Box.
yeah.
So.
I played a little bit of Lost Box, but I played Lost Box to UIC and I bombed. So we don't really want to talk about that. Yeah, so yeah, LAIC was the first tournament I played Charizard for, but I really wanted to bring it to NAIC the season before, so I'm actually going to start there. I thought the deck was incredibly well positioned for the tournament, right? I think like Dragapult was supposed to be this like big, like new thing on the block, but it kind of flopped. And I kind of recognized the deck wasn't very good going into the event, so I really wanted to play Charizard. I wanted to like exploit the fact that Gardevoir was the perceived best deck in the format. So I put in probably like 200, 300 games with Charizard before that tournament. But I ended up playing Lost Box, and I shouldn't have played Lost Box. I should have played Charizard. I had like 3 or 4 other people play the Charizard list that I built, and I was very sad that I wasn't a part of it. So post Worlds, where Charizard I thought was just terribly positioned, we got to a point in the format where Regidrago wasn't a 30% deck the way it was at Worlds. Charizard beat pretty much everything else in the format aside from like Iron Thorns. And so I was going into a field in LAIC where it was very unfamiliar, and I really just wanted a deck that had the best matchup spread, but didn't necessarily need to beat the quote unquote BDIF because it was only a 12 to 14% deck. And that's kind of where Charizard led me. But then as I was kind of figure out like what's the best way to play Charizard, I didn't want to just have a bad Regidrago matchup. And I kind of stumbled on the fact that most of your games against Regidrago that you win are in one of two ways. The first way is you actually just get the first attack off, which doesn't happen super often.
Yeah.
But then the second way is you can like Thornton back into the game. And of course that's rotated now. But the ideas there were that Regidrago is a very, very aggressive deck, and you have to deal with aggression, essentially. And so Secret Box was a much more aggressive ace spec than Unfair Stamp, because Unfair Stamp, of course, is a very reactive ace spec. And so that's kind of where my testing led me. I wanted a more aggressive version of Charizard, and Secret Box kind of filled that role.
You're fantastic. I remember, I think you had an interview with Shift Gear as well, where you kind of talked about, the Secret Box being good at all stages of the game. Like, you need to get set up early, play it. You need a mid-game Thornton, mid-game play, continue setting up Kenny Charizard, or you need a late-game Thornton, pop-off combo. Like, it's there for you too. So I definitely think like some merit to that. So I know a lot of history of like Charizard then, and again, bringing it to today. So we don't have to worry about Regidrago anymore. But right now, Dragapult has this stranglehold on the format. So, I know there's a bunch of different ways to play Charizard right now, right? You can play the Pidgeot version, kind of conventional Charizard, or, Noctowl version with your area zeros. Even John Roberts has like the new Dusknoir, no engine, the 4-3-3, 4-4-2 Dusknoir line. But then, right, then the desk that you've kind of kept going back to is with Dragapult. So how do you settle on an engine to play Charizard with, and how did you come to the spot of like, hey, Dragapult is good, and I'm going to add Charizard to it and make it even better?
Right. So I actually started the format with the idea of like the Terapagos Charizard deck, and I actually thought it was incredibly strong. I thought that you could deal with pretty much every Badoo deck in the format except for Dragapult. And like preliminary results, it didn't look like Dragapult was going to be super strong, but up into Atlanta the week or two before, I think everyone realized, this is just the deck to beat. And no one had really kind of caught on to the Gardevoir wave or even the Eevee box wave, which are some of the more natural counters to the deck. So for that event, everyone was just playing Dragapult. And there was no way you could play a Charizard deck that didn't have a reasonable Dragapult matchup. And I had, seen the Oscar Madsen like guide. He posts about it a lot, and it just seemed like a pretty natural inclusion. I knew that like some top players that weekend probably would have been on Gardevoir. Charizard, of course, its number one upside in the deck is to help with the Gardevoir matchup. So it kind of just felt like the perfect middle ground and something that I was more familiar with. I also had access to like Rowan's Dragapult list that he played with Tanner at Atlanta, but I was on like 2 hours of sleep, and Charizard just seemed a lot easier to play at the time. So I decided to send it knowing that I'd probably perform better with it.
Right. Let's see. So engine wise, yeah, I mean, again, settled on Dragapult, and I guess then you've continued to refine it kind of as you've gone on. So I think at Atlanta you played Unfair Stamp as race spec, correct?
Yes, I went from Unfair Stamp to Heroescape and then back to Unfair Stamp.
Yeah, so I think as we're getting into some like the specifics of like Dragapult Charizard and how you played it, I mean, so I guess, where does that ace spec led you, right? I guess the original version, maybe part of you always wants to play Secret Box just because it's that, cool ace spec that got you on the map and can do so much. But again, Unfair Stamp to Cape in Milwaukee and back to Unfair Stamp for your top 16 run. And talk to us a little bit about like, how you're choosing the card in the list and how it's kind of impacting. And like kind of what led you back to your ace spec, again, switch to Cape, switching back, maybe your next deck will have a different ace spec entirely. Like, what's your thought on like the right ace spec in Charizard?
That's a great question. So, I mean, if you're following Charizard, you've seen that Charizard has been played with pretty much every ace spec on the map. I mean, Tord played with Prime Catcher at EUIC. A lot of people were playing Max Belt. We've seen Unfair Stamp. Of course, we've seen Secret Box. So you can really play any ace spec with Charizard. It's not a deck that's contingent on what ace spec you play. And so Unfair Stamp was like the more natural include just because of the Dragapult engine. I mean, Badoo Unfair Stamp is an absolutely broken combo. You win 20 to 30% of your games against the Noctowl decks just because of Unfair Stamp. And Heroescape is an ace spec that gives you a huge edge against a lot of the decks that just can't deal with it in natural HP. So those are going to be decks like Jolted Box, where their Clefairy cap's pretty low, their Galvantula will cap lower than your HP of the Charizard. And it's also going to help with Gardevoir, where Gardevoir caps pretty naturally at around 330 with Drifloon plus Monkey Dory. So it really comes down to which decks you're targeting. For Atlanta, there was a very, very big respect on the Terra decks. That's Terra Box and Terrapagos Noctowl. But for Milwaukee, I think the Terra decks were falling off a little bit just because of the rise of Dragapult. So I wanted to play an ace spec that was stronger into Gardevoir. After all, it had won 2 or 3 majors in a row already at that point. I know it's like 6 or 7 at this point.
And now it's 5 or 6, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's where the Heroescape led me. The problem that I didn't really think about at Milwaukee was there was a little bit too much jamming tower for my likelihood. I lost 2 rounds just because of jamming tower. Like there was a Goldengo with jamming tower, there was a Dragapult with jamming tower, and I think I played against 2 other opponents that were also playing jamming tower. So I realized, right, Gardevoir's not going anywhere. That means the jamming towers aren't going anywhere. So the transition to Stamp is not as much of a thing that I want to do, but it's something that I kind of have to do. I would like to play Heroescape, but unfortunately, there's just too much jamming tower in the format to kind of use it in the matchups where you'd want to use it.
Makes sense. Because all those matchups, they have trickier Gardevoir matchups. Well, everything kind of has a tricky Gardevoir matchup. So everything
know,
else is
right?
playing
Yeah.
jamming tower. So
Does anything beat Gardevoir?
I mean, apparently, itself maybe that's about it. So,
I could say that.
all right, and you mentioned the Badoo, right? So you're playing a Charizard Dragapult list with double Badoo. Again, double Badoo is pretty standard in Dragapult lists these days. But I want to call out specifically, you're playing double Badoo, but you're also playing a TM Evo. Which again, TM Evo is kind of the card of the weekend where we saw, Gardevoir switching back to some TM Evos, including that. I guess, give us a little bit of insight. Maybe someone wants to pick up your deck. What situations should be going for that early Badoo and just kind of keep spamming the Badoo pressure and like get some Dracloaks into play slowly? Or do you need to, go for the more aggressive Evo in a Charmeleon and a Dracloak and like start swinging next turn?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, it's all about what items you want to shut off, right? You don't want to just use Badoo because you can use Badoo. If you're playing against like a Dragapult deck that already has 3 Dreepies in play and they Ultra Balled for a Dracloak last turn, right? There's not really much you're targeting. In these Dragapult mirrors, after everyone has Dreepies down, you're only targeting Ultra Ball and then sometimes Energy Search. So in the Dragapult mirrors, it actually just becomes a lot better to make your own Dracloaks because now you force your opponent to match your pace. And they're probably going to have to use these Ultra Balls, which means, they might be discarding cards like Countercatcher or Boss or Energies, right? So they're going to be getting rid of more resources, whereas you immediately have access to the Dracloaks. So the same thing can be said for pretty much all of your matchups. For this TM Evo Guardy build, you're not shutting off as much because they rely on the tool card to get set up versus the items that like the classic Brent list uses. But of course, the item heavy decks, anything that plays a rare candy in it, anything that is like a more item dominant engine with like 4 Ultra Balls or like Nest Balls and Ultra Balls. So if you're looking at something like the old Guardy, of course, that has a lot more items that you want to shut down. But it can also be applied to anything like with a Pidgeot in it, right? So like I played against a Hydreigon this weekend. I know it's kind of crazy. I played against that 8-2, what was it, 8-2-1?
At the last round.
Yeah, winning in
Yeah.
for 16, right? Yeah.
To top
Or
16,
bubble,
yeah. My
Crazy.
opponent just like looked at me when they flipped over a Dino, and I was like, I was too locked in to like really like make a reaction to it, but I was like, oh, that's a Dino.
What's Dino doing here at round 12, right? So
Yeah, exactly. And of course, that deck doesn't have as many like inherent consistency things in its deck, so it's more reliant on items. So you're going to be looking to target down the rare candies that they want to use, the Ultra Balls they want to use, even like Earthen Vessel, right? Because that deck needs attachments. So always just be thinking about what you want to shut down. And if there's not much you want to shut down, that's when you go back to the TM Evo.
Yeah, I remember I was testing a lot of Dragapult for Atlanta, and I had the Evo in here, and host of the podcast was like, "You need to take that out if you're playing Badoo. When are you ever gonna?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. It's sometimes Evo's just better, but
It
it's
is.
cool
It
to
is.
see that." Yeah.
I will say the other thing about it is like it pairs very well with Charizard because if you're playing straight Dragapult with like no energy acceleration and you Evo to a Dreepian and gets KO'd, you're very behind on attachments, but Charizard completely solves that problem. So the synergy with TM Evo is a lot better in this version of the build.
Yeah, and I
good.
definitely think the like you said, I think the first comment you said out the gate with your answer was like, well, just because you can Dreepy doesn't mean you always need to, which I think a lot of people are losing now. People say, well, I play a Dreepy, I play a Badoo. Let me just go and Badoo, because I can, right? I would say like just because the card glows on PTCG Live doesn't mean you have to play it, right? So I think identifying is like, hey, if your opponent already has 3 Dreepies in play and they have like a Dracloak in hand, or they like, almost played a Jacques last turn, like, and you don't really need to item lock them, like just go and like more aggressively set up your board.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You also have like, I play against like a Joltik box, and you can do a Joltik box, and then they attach 4 energies to a hands, or you could put 2 Draclooks in play and actually do something.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
For Charizard specifically, again, you're playing just the 2/1/2 line with 2 candies, and again, of course, the Evo to get the Charmeleon into play. Are you, is Charizard like early game? Is Charmander going down like every game, or is it pretty matchup specific? Like when you're using it at all? I guess explain a little bit about like how you approach using Charmander. Again, is it matchup dependent, or is it you're saying, hey, I always need an emergency energy acceleration? Like how are you kind of mixing in Charmander to like a regular standard Dragapult setup? We'll say.
Right. So the first thing that you need to realize when you're playing this deck is it's not a Charizard deck, it's a Dragapult deck, which means that you are not really looking to use Charizard as your primary attacker in many matchups. So there are a few exceptions, like Gardevoir, you want to be using Charizard primarily, and Dragapult as a secondary attacker. So you're looking to get Charmander down in pretty much every Gardevoir game. But in things like the Dragapult mirror, Charizard kind of sucks. Sure, you get the energy acceleration, which is great, but the second that you put a Charizard in play, they're counter catching it and they're phantom diving it. And then you have 2 terrible options, which is to retreat a Charizard, which is not great because Charizard's a little chubby. Or you can attack with Charizard, which is also really terrible because then you're essentially using phantom dive without putting 6 damage counters on the bench. So it really comes to identifying what Charizard's actually doing for you in the matchup. In a matchup where you need energy acceleration, so a quicker matchup like Terra Box or Raging Bolt, it's very helpful because it has the duality of the energy acceleration and being an attacker. And then the matchups like Gardevoir, where it just is a primary attacker, that's great. That can also carry over to matchups like Joltik Box, where you can just one-shot hands and force them to have like a response Galvantula and stuff like that. And then the matchups like Dragapult, where Charizard is a little bit weaker, then you're going to want to hold off on putting it in play. You're going to want to save it for later in the game. You can identify situations where the opponent can't take out Charmander in the late game. So if the opponent can't set up Monkey Dory and they have to attach somewhere else, if the opponent's already committed the Hawlucha, or they've bench locked themselves out of a card like Hawlucha or Monkey Dory, well, then you have opportunities to get the Charmander involved. And then the inherent energy acceleration factor is very useful because then you can establish your Monkey Dory, get your Luminous on the Monkey Dory, and you're not too afraid of falling behind on attachments.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say real quick, just going over the list, I know that like the 90 HP Charmeleon's really good against Dragapult because they can't mess with it when it's on your bench. But I see you played the 100 HP one. Was there a specific reason for that?
Yeah, so the 90 HP Charmeleon is very nice for Dragapult Mirror, like you said. It's also very nice for the it's very nice for the Sylveon matchup. That's like actually the number one reason that you would play it is the ability stops Angelite, which makes it pretty much impossible to lose. But there's 2 reasons why I didn't play it. So one, N Zoroark is very, very tricky with the 90 HP Charmeleon. The 100 HP Charmeleon takes it out of range from Darmanitan's Flame Body Cannon, which is just incredibly useful because their entire game plan revolves around not letting you set up. And then the second reason for that Charmeleon is that I didn't really think that Sylveon was a problem even without it. I think the Sylveon matchup is pretty much unlosable if you set up. Which is a big if because of Angelite, of course. But, you have the TM Evo, you have, a lot of consistency cards. I included a lot more supporters than I used to play. And as long as you're set up, you should just beat them pretty much every time. So I didn't really feel like the use cases there were super relevant. And I guess like the final use case, you mentioned Dragapult. In the Dragapult matchup, you very rarely want to have a Charmeleon in play. And specifically, you very rarely want to have that Charmeleon in play. The other Charmeleon can do 1 for 20 and knock out 2. But the problem with that Charmeleon is that if you put it in play and you take a lead, the opponent can just like stamp counter catcher this Charmeleon up and then do it, and you're stuck with a 2 retreat Charmeleon in the active, which is just terrible for so many different reasons.
Makes sense. I was thinking, in the end, like in the EV box matchup, we were talking about like, you have Team Evo. I guess in that matchup specifically, are you like waiting for an Angelite, waiting for them to use it, and then knowing that your bench is gonna be safe with turns, so you can go like, now use your Evo, put like, Charmeleon, Dracoke into play, and then now you have a turn to go evolve into both of them without being able to get disrupted.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you never want to Evo on their Angelite turn because your Draclokes are going right back into the
Yeah.
deck. So you're typically going to reserve it for the turn after. But that matchup is more so just about getting a ton of guys down. Like, I just want to
Mhm.
get like 3 Dreepies and 2 Charmanders. Or even if I'm not doing them, I can go like 4 Dreepies and two
Yeah.
Charmanders. And at some point, like, they're just going to eventually roll you over. And you just can't knock out Charizard. Like, it has too
Yeah.
much HP. You can't use Kieran plus Carnelian to take a KO. It's just too big. Nothing hits weakness on it. I mean, maybe if you play your Leafeon to counter Grimmsnarl for NAIC, you have an option there. But generally speaking, I'm just pretty sure that if my opponent takes prizes aggressively, then a Charizard and an unfair stamp is just like coming through and they're not going to be able to respond to it.
Well said, well said. Well, you mentioned Grimmsnarl and NAIC. So we have some questions to shift to for that because for anyone who isn't aware, Dragapult Charizard did win the Champions League in our Destined Rivals format. Of
Yes.
course, we have the Psyduck, but other than the Psyduck, pretty similar there. And this build a little bit different than yours. I mean, did go up for like a thicker 3/2/2 Charizard, and a few other techs included the Prime Catcher and a double Evo and a Watchtower. Things like that. A couple different options, but anyways, kind of want your take on Dragapult Charizard heading into NAIC. So. I think first off, it won in the Champions League. Is this deck well positioned for NAIC?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So I will say take Japanese results with a large grain of salt because best of 1 30 minutes with double game loss if you tie forces players to make very different decisions in deck building like this. You can't sit there and Badoo for 50 minutes if it means that both of you guys lose, which
Mhm.
inherently is going to make Charizard a whole lot stronger. So I actually think that this Japanese list is pretty much terrible in the in the Western Pokemon region, just because you do need to Badoo opponents. You do need to slow them down. The Unfair Stamp is really strong. Prime Catcher is like the 4th or 5th ace spec I would choose to include in this deck because I think it's pretty much only useful against Gardevoir to chase the Gardevoir EX. I don't really think you need the Gust effect anywhere else. But going back to leading into NAIC, I don't think too much in the format changes. The Rocket stack, it doesn't seem to be super popular, and even if it was, I think just having the combination of Charizard and Dragapult makes it pretty tough for them to respond to both. Like, I mean, they have the Mewtwo with the Clefairy, and they have the Spidops, but to reliably get both of them with a lackluster draw engine is very difficult. And then Grimmsnarl, which is probably the one that most people are hyped on for this tournament. This deck seems like it could be a little bit more troubling for Dragapult Charizard. And so I'm thinking at the moment that to adjust to the fact that Gardevoir is an obscenely broken deck, is that maybe we play some Jamming Towers in the deck so we can
Mm.
pair Jamming Tower with Iono to shut off the opponent's TM devolution potential. But other than that, I think the deck's very strong. I think the deck's positioned like well. The Shaman release helps the deck. I don't even know if you necessarily need to play the Shaman, but it does remove like a sketchy Terra Box matchup because no one's going to play Terra Box in a format where Shaman's legal.
Right.
And the rest of the matchups stay relatively the same. You got a relatively good Gardevoir matchup. There's probably less straight Dragapult as a result of Grimmsnarl and Gardevoir being very popular. So it's generally speaking pretty good for the deck.
All right. I know you mentioned a little bit, some already changes, right? You mentioned maybe jamming towers and adaptation. I guess any other ways that, it maybe not even with Dragapult Charizard, just Charizard as a whole. How would you best adapt Charizard for success into NAIC? Is it more jamming towers? You still keeping Dragapult as the main partner?
So I do think that the Charizard Pidgeot version that plays and it's like 75th or 78th Utrecht. It played 4 Colress's Tenacity, it played Grand Tree. It was a little bit out there. But I think that that version of the deck is actually pretty strong. It doesn't really have to worry about the Watchtowers that are going to be coming down to shut off Pidgeot because you have 4 supporters that search for a stadium. Um, I think that version of the deck is very, very consistent and very frequently gets set up. And the addition of a card like Shaman into the format is going to make things slow down a little bit more. You don't have to worry about decks like Terravox that are clearing your board on turn 2. So you have the time to get the Pidgeot in play. And, typically the longer that games go on when you have a Pidgeot in play, the more favored you are to win. So I think that is an excellent way to play the deck. I'm probably going to experiment with that one a little bit. But I do think that, Dragapult Charizard is also a very, very strong way to go with the deck, just because it's a very versatile deck. It doesn't take too many bad matchups anywhere. I think the one really, really questionable matchup is Goldengo. But I don't really think Goldengo is a good deck, so I'm not really
play
too
the
worried about
Chiyu
it.
potentially.
Yes, actually, if you play the Chiyu, the matchup goes from like really bad to really good. The problem is that you have a Chiyu in your deck, and that card is just completely useless elsewhere. I hate playing tech cards for one matchup, so I don't know if I would include it.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be looking at a 75th place or 76th place Utrecht list on this interview, but looking at this list, I mean, you have the Farfetch'd in here to reliably get your Jet Evo Artisan combo off the Colress's Tenacity to Evo out your Dusclops or Charmeleon or a Pidgeotto, so kind of some cool pieces in here. I see what you're cooking, Jackson. Thanks for sharing some of the spice with any Charizard believers out there.
It's very cool. Definitely would give that one a try, yeah.
All right, good. Oh, even the Briar in there? Okay, all right. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. There's
Yeah,
some cool
they're
options
cooking.
here.
They're cooking. Like I wouldn't have come up with this on my own, and I thought about like similar ideas with the Tenacity, but they really like pull all of them together in a very cohesive manner. I'm
There you
quite
go.
a fan.
Shout out Vincent from Germany for that one. I might have to spend a little time with this one. So awesome. Again, we heard a lot of thoughts about Charizard. Any other decks that you're working on or thinking about for NAIC format? I know you mentioned some of the other contenders out there. Is it Charizard way, or is it maybe your eyes getting drawn somewhere else?
So I am interested in the Grimmsnarl deck. I mean, it has a very similar ability to Infernal Rain. It's the same type as Charizard. So, I mean, there are some inherent, things that draw me towards the deck that are very similar. I think the deck's quite strong. I know like Kieran Farah has been like talking about the deck a little bit as well. Frostless Monkey is something that he's worked on quite a bit. I've experimented with that archetype a little bit. The number one thing for me is really just seeing if it beats Gardevoir. So if that deck beats Gardevoir, then I'm definitely going to invest a lot of time into it because I think that its matchup spread is quite strong. I think you have a good Dragapult matchup. I think you have a good Goldengo matchup. So I think that deck is definitely worth looking into. The number one question really is just going to be, can we consistently knock out Gardevoir EX? Because it doesn't matter how many dark types that hit Gardevoir EX for weakness you have in your deck if you can't knock out Gardevoir EX. And that's a big problem that sometimes Charizard comes into is you have this big, super effective attacker, but you just can't knock out the Gardevoir, so it doesn't matter.
We have a Drifloon Serenite. She was like, I want to knock out Gardevoir, but I kind of have to deal with this.
Yeah. That's why we need the jamming tower as well.
The jamming tower, yeah. Definitely missing Lost Vacuum from back in the day. Any thoughts on Ruffian? Get rid of that tool?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so Ruffian, no. But if you haven't read the Farfetch'd attack that I mentioned earlier, the Farfetch'd is actually so fun against Dragapult because if they just like drop a Luminous or a Neo Upper onto a Dreepy, you can just boss it and discard the energy, which is actually quite cool. So no Ruffians will be going into my deck, but the Farfetch'd is surprisingly pretty good against Dragapult.
Yeah,
Farfetch'd. It knocks out Badoo as well, actually. 1 for 30, and you also discard a special.
Actually, yeah.
Like, it's quite good.
Yeah, from Frolic Masquerade, Impromptu Carrier, right? So the idea of the Colress's Tenacity is you go Artisan for the Farfetch'd and grab a Jet Energy, and then the Impromptu Carrier when you play from your hand onto the bench.
Wait. No, it's more complicated. You actually have to do Artisan for the Fan Rotom. And then
Artisan for the Fan Rotom. Oh, because you need the Farfetch'd in your hand.
Yeah.
To use the ability. Okay. But the attack Mock Cut, 1 colorless for 30, discard a special energy for opponent's active. Yeah, that definitely does get annoying for your Dragapult opponents with Luminous for sure. And they put Neo up or down, just like, it's over.
Oh yeah, it's over. It's over. You have so much time.
That's awesome. Parker, any other thoughts we have for Jackson for NAIC or Charizard?
He kind of answered it. I was like, are you looking at any decks from the next set? Or is like looking at the Grimmsnarl, doesn't like Mewtwo, that kind of thing. Like,
yeah. Grimmsnarl is kind of like Charizard, like you said.
It's like Dragapult Zard on one card.
Yeah, There we go. That
Yeah,
might be the
it's
secret.
very, very strong. I mean, the number one thing for that deck is that, Frostlass Monkey Dory is just an inherently really strong engine. It's very underrated, and you just take it and you add, like, the stage 2 that is pretty good. It is very self-sufficient with the stadium card, with the ability that powers itself up. So you're taking a deck that maybe struggled a little bit in the power department and a little bit in the consistency department, and you're giving it both. So, yeah, at
Yeah.
worst, I think it'll be a good deck.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, Jackson, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us, sharing all your thoughts about Charizard, Dragapult, new format, and just, how to get better at the game and like focus on our testing efforts, all that stuff. So do you want to give you a quick chance? Any shout outs or sponsors that you want to list out before we let you go?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, the shout out's the usual. I brought them up earlier, but Banana Games and Hobby, it's my card sponsor here in Toronto, Ontario. So if you're in the area, definitely check them out. Also shout out to Endgame TCG. It's a Canadian-based sleeve company. I think they're working on getting in the US, but if you are in Canada, I would highly recommend that you check them out because fantastic sleeves. And then, also shout out to my coaching. I'm also looking into get into YouTube, but you can find me on Metafy, as I'm sure you can find a lot of people on Metafy. But I will also be getting into the YouTube scene, so you can find me on YouTube. Probably we'll promote that through Twitter a little bit. So feel free to drop me a follow at JCT Ford with 2 Ds.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Jackson, thanks so much for joining us. Great having you on. Good luck at NAIC. We're looking forward to seeing you there with whatever you cook up, maybe Marty's Greenstall, maybe more Charizard. But for everyone else, we'll get back to the podcast. All right, welcome back to the Beach Court Podcast. Big thank you to Jackson Ford for joining us. All right, we're going to jump right into Crispin's Corner. And again, how this section works is we're going to be highlighting some lists from day one of Portland Regionals that did not quite make it, but we're going to pick 2 of them and randomly select them, pair them up against each other, and then Parker and I will decide on which one would win in a theoretical match over the table. We'll also decide on which deck was cooking the most out of all the decks that we look at today. So anyone who's watching on our podcasting platforms, I will be jumping over to sharing the screen so we can go and see some of these deck lists live and see how they compare. So we'll get a few numbers first. First off, we have number 873 versus 1095. So we have 873, Ethan Yoon with Raging Bolt versus 1095 with Flareon Box. Quite a classic matchup. We'll have to see how this one goes and see if there's any spice in any of these lists. So Ethan has chosen a pretty straightforward list. This looks pretty close to like Christian Labella's list. I do think, one, we picked a different Hoot Hoot than the triple stab one. Mixing it up, you never know. Wants to get that hand intel, but also 2 bosses orders and only the 1 Crispin. So I think that's a standout inclusion there. Everything else looks pretty standard. He uses the 6th Grass Energy for Raging Bolt and the 4th Teal Pond. So
it's got the 1 energy switch.
Ooh, the 1 energy switch give you some extra options for Raging Bolt's Thunderburst Storm to get going a little bit quicker. Let's see, Chris Calvert on the right playing Flareon Box. Ooh, with the Leafeon EX inclusion.
Sauce.
Definitely helps into those Dragapults. Anything else Grass Week, you set that up against an Enzork and you're swinging for pretty good big damage as well.
Charizard.
Yeah.
It's got Serrano.
Serrano. Hey,
Serrano.
Jewel Seeker for Serrano, actually. You go grab like your Evolution, your Fez EX, and like your Latios. Oh, actually, no Latios. Just kidding. You're something else. Ooh, actually, they play the Wellspring Ogerpon as well. So,
Okay.
definitely cooking here. Parker, on this match over the table, Flareon, Noctowl, Raging Bolt. Who you got?
This one's odd. It's like kind of like very dependent on like their first turns, I think. But like, I don't know. So I think Bolt's probably favored in this matchup, but like people will say like Sylveon boxes just because of Clefairy, and like that's fair, but like, are you gonna be able to chain 2 Sylveons and a Clefairy to finish the game? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess you can Flareon, Gusta, Teal Mask. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the big piece that's like normally a bigger difference maker is Briar, right? Flareon Noctowl Flareon Box typically plays a Briar, so that way they can even go Flareon to take a 1 prize KO and then catch up on that prize trade later on with Briar. Using, Sylveon's attack or even, Flareon's second attack to one-shot a Raging Bolt. However, Chris did not play Briar. Chris opted not to play a Briar and instead opted for Crispin and a few other options, including the Wellspring Ogerpon, maybe preparing for a little bit of different matchups across the board. So I think for that reason alone, I got to give a little bit of a nod to Ethan here. Without the Briar threat, I think that, Raging Bolt can do a lot to continue to put on the pressure. We have all the tools here. I think only the one Crispin makes it a little trickier, and even with the double boss, even after some late game disruption from Flareon Noctowl, the not late game Iono, more likely to draw that boss that you need. Again, I think need to give a slight nod to Raging Bolt here, like Parker was saying. All right, we'll jump to our next one. We have 990, which is none other than Gavin
Duel
with Terapagos Noctowl. Is that a bulky Terapagos still hanging out in Milwaukee? All right, or Portland. Versus 561. Oops, that's the 1561 versus Charizard Dusknoir. Okay, now we're talking. Now we got a little Crispin's corner spicy matchup. So see our bulky Terapagos versus Charizard Dusknoir. The Charizard Dusknoir is pretty close to the John Roberts top 32 Milwaukee build. I think almost exactly the same. I think is almost exactly the list. I think John Roberts played 2 Candy, only 1 here. But again, a pretty standard build. And again, the idea here being you're playing very thick lines of Charmander and Dusknoir, 4-3 Charizard, or 4-4-2 Dusknoir, plus the Clef and Iron Bundle and Chi-Yu for all those pesky Kuldangos running around. Versus Terapagos Noctowl, the bulky turtles. Haven't seen this one in a while. Parker, I know you've played this list a good little bit, and any standout cards you see from this bulky Terapagos?
No, not really. Looks pretty standard to me.
Yeah, I think, again, the cornerstone being a pretty big factor in this matchup in particular. And I think other than that, I mean, the bulky Terapagos, 3 Iono, 3 Crispin, plus your normal 4-4 Noctowl is 3 Terapagos. The Lily's Clefairy, Scoop Up Cyclone is the ace spec of choice. And 1 Energy Switch just give you a little extra flexibility to go along with that Glass Trumpet. Yeah, I think for this one, a little bit of an interesting matchup. Definitely the cornerstone is a big deal. Obviously, Charizard cannot attack a cornerstone Ogerpon. We do have the Dusknoirs, and actually, I guess we have the Chi-Yu as well.
The Chi-Yu, yeah.
So a Chi-Yu plus a
Looks
Chi-Yu
like
attack plus
Dusknoir.
Dusknoir, or just double Dusknoir.
Yeah.
Can take out a cornerstone in one shot. This might go to Crispin's corner because, these are 2 decks that you kind of just forget exist, and then now to see them against each other, it's like, what would even happen?
Yeah.
All right, but Parker, we got to pick one. At the end of the day, Charizard Dusknoir, Terapagos Noctowl, who you got?
I think I got Charizard on this one. With Old Lizard.
Lizard. Why do you say that?
I think because there comes a point in the game where the damage mitigation and stuff doesn't matter, and there's really not a way for Terapagos to just take a one shot on this deck, and I think that's what the game will eventually come down to. Plus you have the 2 counter catchers, so your first 2 prizes are gonna be on a Fez or Latios or something, or just a benched Terapagos, or you can just Dusknoir one of the Bouffalants and then hit the I don't know. I think there's just too many ways and scenarios where Charizard probably wins it.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you there. I think, again, the main thing John Roberts lists is there isn't a lot of recovery. So it's very hard for you to go and pull off 3 Dusknoir attacks. It's technically possible, but it's pretty tricky. So I think it's really, Charizard Dusknoir being able to just go and say, hey, I'm going to use my attacks pretty efficiently and get an Evo, go, use Trolley Evo, get the board set up, just kind of take things slow, force Terapagos Noctowl to have to get aggressive and start swinging with a Terapagos. But eventually Charizard can just kind of find an angle to go Dusknoir or Bouffalant, take 1 for 1. And then now you're one-shotting the Terapagos, plus an Iono, plus you can threaten, like you said, a boss on another 2 prize or power up another Dusknoir or any number of pieces, right? You'd have to get, for Tropical Noctowl, you'd have to get to like a lone cornerstone board state after already like dealing with
Using
enough Dusknoirs type
2
of thing.
Dusknoirs, yeah.
Where things would be kind of tricky. So the John Roberts build played by Reed does not have a lot of Gust. Again, 2 counter catchers in the boss. So I mean, maybe a little bit of risk there, but I think I go with you, Parker. Charizard do a little too much damage. There's way too much investment in Dusknoir. And at the end of the day, like even, there'd be so many times where you could just pull off a Dusknoir, KO the only Hoot, plus KO the active with Charizard in the active. And there's just nothing, that Tropical can do after Disruption.
Yep.
All right, we'll go and tackle another one. We have 1667 for Osvaldo Valdez with the Flareon Noctowl versus 1152, which is Eddie with Joltik Box. Whoa! All right, wait, where'd we go? Okay, we're back. All right, Osvaldo versus Eddie. Let's go and see if there's any spice in the list. Joltik Box with the Genesect inclusion.
I do see a Genesect.
Well, some other
Power Glass.
Yeah, some Power Glass, Heavy Baton, a whole suite of tools to utilize, along with an Iron Leaves as a little backup extra attacker. Versus Flareon Noctowl, again, we've seen this one a little bit different. Does include the Briar with Flareon Noctowl here, and no Leafeon. Back to a little more conventional. The 2 Flareon, 2 Sylveon, as well as a Tropicos and the Lily's Clefairy. Do go along 3 Crispin, 2 Boss, 2 Iono, Turo, Kirin. Oh, yeah, the Kirin is actually interesting. And, Brock Scouting is another way to get your basics out or find an evolution. Parker, Joltik Box versus Flareon, who you got?
I have no clue how this matchup goes.
So just a little bit on the matchup, right? I mean, the main thing is, flare out, all of your EV box attackers able to kind of, get swinging and attacking early. Both of you do need a setup turn, right? Ideally, you're using Flareon to power up for 1 turn, while also Joltik Box needs to go and use their Jolting Charge, power up a little bit because the Iron Hand's going. Iron Hands, of course, being very good to go capitalize on a single prize board state. However, Flareon Box has plenty of ways to take the knockouts. I think the main way you'll be swinging will be with the Flareon EX Carnelian's attack, or what is Carnelian? Yeah, Carnelian attack hit 280, which you can do fairly reliably, and you're one-shotting an Iron Hands. Of course, you have the Pikachu effect. Pikachu can go and hit you. I just respond to that. Another inclusion, the Flareon Noctowl does play a Terapagos, so in theory, Crown Opal is on the table.
Yeah. Or wait, no, it's not. It doesn't play the grass.
We have Crystal.
Oh, that's right. You
can go Water, Lightning, Crystal, and Crown Opal.
Yeah. I feel like the main attacker for Flareon Noctowl might be the Clefairy in this matchup. Oh.
I don't know about. I mean, I think you can often hit if you need to just hit a 200 on a Pikachu, it's pretty good. But at the same time, I think some of the other guys are a little bit more efficient and can have a little more consistent damage, right? Like a Clefairy, you're forced to have Area 0 into play to actually knock out an Iron Hands type of thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's dual thing. You never know.
Like,
I have 0 experience with this matchup, so
yeah. I think the tricky thing here is the Pikachu. Again, the Pikachu is very hard to deal with for Flareon, and the Eddie did include the Power Glass. So again, if you can get a spot where you have Pikachu with the Power Glass on, then you're able to like very consistently chain those attacks. Flareon deck is kind of forced to just hit into you, right? Actually, that's probably a line. You go with a fan Rotom attack, or even use the Eevee and you skip for 10, right? Just anything to just like do a little bit of damage if Osvaldo can help find that line, damage the Pikachu and set things up. I do think the Briar threat here is pretty real. If Flareon's able to go and take an early knockout, right? Maybe they're able to go and KO that Joltik early. They would need to do a later counter catcher play to get around the Pikachu, but could definitely set up a situation to Briar for game. But might be a little bit too much to ask for. I think in terms of just like a deck that's a little bit more straightforward, and also like if Joltik Box. If Eddie could go and establish the Genesect and then just deny Crystal completely, That's going to make it a little lot harder to get a Carnelian off for Osvaldo, or to even use an Angelite or anything else. So, actually, I forgot another decent attack in the matchup. It is the EVX, the Corsicating Quartz, which you can attack with 200 damage. Again, that's the perfect number to deal enough to a Pikachu EX. So, got a bunch of tools here to attack, but I think I got a little bit of an edge to Joltik Box. Parker, what do you think?
I think so too, with my limited matchup experience here. I think like Pikachu is just too good of a card in the decks that don't have a way to deal with it. Like maybe there's a world where they kill Joltik, Gust the Mew, and then like Briar counter catcher on something. Like I don't know, but like I feel like in a match of like 11 games, Joltik Box probably takes more.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, I think our cook of the day might have to go to our original Flareon Noctowl with the Leafeon, with the Water Pond. No Briar, but we got the Serrano, some cool options. What do you think, Parker? Any other contenders?
I think so, yeah. So the Charizard deck is very spicy, but it's a net deck of John Robertson's list. So I guess therefore it is not as spicy. I think I gotta give it to the Noctowl Flareon deck.
Chris cooking with all the options. We got the grass, we got the fire, we got Water Pond, we got Leafeon, we got Sylveon, we got Flareon, we got everything. No Briar, but we don't need that with all these other attackers. So, all right, fantastic. Thanks everyone for joining us on Crispin's Corner for this week. Next, we have our Bricking in Bourbon Street. We're kind of highlighting some of the NAIC stuff down in Bourbon Street of New Orleans, of course. Before we do that, I need to give a quick shout out to FCBC Armor, again, supporting us and our sleeves of choice to make sure that we shuffle easy. And also, it was once again an all FCBC finals of Henry Chow versus Michael Davidson, both FCBC athletes. So if you want to use what some of the best are playing, make sure you pick up some. You can check out our link in the description below. And also NakamaCon. Again, we have the Nakama Card Show coming back around on June 28th, the brand new debut of Nakama Gaming. It was a bunch of fun last time down in Orange Park, Florida. So excited to see any of y'all come out for that as well next time that you are in the Orange Park, Jacksonville area.
Yeah.
All right.
Get to play against me.
Yeah, go take down Parker. Nah, you probably can't, honestly. He just picked up Terror Box for the first time, and he's like learning that's like cool and that like it does all its things. Just don't Iono him to 2. Right? Never do that.
Yeah.
But other than that, he'll cook you.
Just don't play Iono ever, actually.
Unless it's your own Iono, Parker, in which case you will brick yourself.
Yeah, it could happen.
But for Bricking on Bourbon Street, again, we have just 3. This is after this episode, we have 2 more episodes before NAIC. So as we kind of lead our way, brick by brick to Bourbon Street to New Orleans, we want to let you all know on our mind of what decks are bustling, what decks are in the crawfish broil, what decks are going to be bricking for NAIC. And our first 2 decks are some of the newest decks on the block from Destined Rivals. So we're talking about the Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX as well as Team Rocket's Mewtwo EX. So I think let's start with Parker, Team Rocket's Mewtwo. So we saw this as a big deal. Again, I think the most hyped engine and cards in the set. Of course, with the such a strong supporter engine and the transceiver. What is it? Rocket's transceiver.
Yeah, search a supporter.
Yeah, I mean, anything where you can search a supporter is just an incredibly powerful effect, especially when it's
Great Ball.
What was that?
Oh, I was saying Rocket's Great Ball.
Oh yeah, Rocket's Great Ball. Yeah, I mean, all these great engine pieces. I mean, and even you search for Guzma, search for Bridget, right?
Yeah.
All these great set of search for Skyla, all these options. So, and of course, Tord Reklov played it to Champions League. Saw a pretty spicy list there, utilizing the Team Rocket Spite Ops. But Parker, I mean, what are your thoughts on this list? You're prepping for NAIC. Both of us are going. Team Rockets. I mean, is this a deck you're thinking about, or is this a deck that is going to be simmering in the crawfish broil on Bourbon Street because it's just not it?
So I think the engine of the deck's really good, and I think that the deck definitely has potential, but the way the format is right now, I think it might not be the best play for the event. So like maybe if like the format was all like big basics, it'd be pretty decent. But it's like, oh, okay, you had the Mewtwo, you killed my Ralts. Now I just Drifloon and I knock out your Mewtwo. Like now what do you do? Like, I don't know. Like in a format of like, I don't know, decks built more like it, I think it'd be a little better, but I think it like might struggle a bit just to those like comebacky decks.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you there. I mean, again, an extremely powerful engine, right? When you have all Team Rockets Pokemon in play, and you get Iono's 2 into a Team Rockets Transceiver, and you can grab a Team Rockets Ariana, draw until you have 8. And you have Team Rockets Factory in play to draw another 2, right? I mean, you can reset your hand and basically do anything you want. I think the problem comes down to like that's like you can't do enough. Like your Team Rockets Mewtwo EX. You need 3 energy to power it up. It's just a little bit like too much that you need. You need like, again, things are slower that you don't always need to power it up in one turn. But to get like a grass energy on it plus your Team Rockets energy, you're only hitting for 280 of the active, so you're not one-shotting a Dragapult. You can play a Lily's Clefairy to hit for weakness, but then you're not, then you don't get your full Ariana value. I think there's like, again, like probably the strongest like trainer supporter engine we've ever seen. I mean, maybe not ever seen, but like VS Seeker was probably better. But like I mean, or the Holland engine probably better because it was more universal. But like this engine is some of the strongest like trainer card engine we've seen in a while. But I think just the attackers just are not it. I'm actually almost curious if there's like more that people could do with like the single prize attackers. Like, could someone utilize like the Team Rocket Spite Ops and like Mimikyu as like a toolboxy deck? Or even like the Porygon Z that like deals more damage when you have supporters in the discard. Something about Team Rocket's Mewtwo like just doesn't seem like it's it.
Yeah, I don't know. Super good card, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
We
will
have
there
to
be
see.
some in day 2? Probably. But
I don't even know. I don't even know if it'll. I mean, one's maybe got to sneak in, but like, are you beating Guardy? Are you beating Dragapult? I don't know if you are.
Probably not. But I mean, I don't know. You could go like the Lily's Clefairy route, and you could use the Mimikyu to copy the Dragapult. And like,
That's true.
could be
Actually,
something.
you do have the Articuno as well in there.
Yeah,
Team Rocket's Articuno. I'm trying to see the ability name real quick.
Yeah, no effects of attack. Oh, the ability name.
Yeah. The resistance veil prevent all effects of attacks done by your opponent's Pokemon done to your basic Team Rockets Pokemon. So being able to just protect all of your Tarantulas and your Mimikyu, and just prevent them from chipping damage on your Mewtwo seems like it's pretty strong. So honestly, there's enough anti-Dragapult tech that maybe there's enough. So I didn't quite see the success in Japan so far. But maybe someone will cook up a spicy list for New Orleans. But I think in our first opinion, it's maybe one of the decks bricking on Bourbon Street. That's not quite it. But anyways, one deck that has been bustling lately, and we need to see whether it's again a trap or if it's one that a lot of people will be hopping on the bandwagon for, is Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX. So this one is, I think, made a lot of news because the decks were released early on TCG Live, even though it's not legal for the format yet. So there's a lot of people playing Grimmsnarl EX on TCG Live, even though it's like not legal truly yet, and the rest of Destined Rivals not out yet. By the time you're listening to this, Destined Rivals should be out on TCG Live. But Marnie's Grimmsnarl, again, we see people playing this. Again, it's kind of Charizard-esque, kind of Dragapult-esque. Once you evolve into it, it searches the deck for energy to attach to itself. It's 180 of the active and 30 damage to the bench, not damage counters. And it's a dark type. I mean, Parker, is this Charizard 2.0, or is this just like an underwhelming stage 2?
I mean, it is like Charizard Dragapult, like put on one card, but like, I don't know. I do think it's good. I do think that it being able to just go counter catcher, kill your Gardevoir is like very, very good. I think that the ability's crazy. The fact that it's dark and you play dark energies, it gives you Monkey Dory. Like, you don't have to think about it. You just slam Monkey Dory in the deck. And then it does snipe, although Shaman is coming out, and then like half the good cards are terrors anyways, so you can't even hit them on the bench. But I mean, I think it's definitely got legs. I do like the card itself. I guess is like a worse Dragapult, but we'll have to see like what kind of lists come out and everything. Because I mean, I see like Japan had like like 4 of them in top 16 while playing like the the Frostlass and stuff too. Like, oh, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I do
So,
think I do think one of the strongest parts about the deck is just like the early, like again, we know like Badoo Frostlass is a deck. It doesn't see a ton of success. We even highlighted like the Badoo Frostlass Espathra deck that did make day 2. And it's a deck that we see around. I think like Marnie's Grimmsnarl now gives it like this bigger like late game closer type of thing, or even like a mid game where you can start swinging and putting the pressure on. I think the big thing that I've seen with this is that the combination of like Frostlass plus Badoo Lock plus Marty Grimmsnarl attack plus Devo can just set up for some like really devastating board wipe scenarios. And then again, and it's not even like the attack itself or like Badoo's 10 damage or Grimmsnarl's 180 damage to the active. It's just like you're self-damaging your Monkey Dories and then passing all the damage over with Monkey Dory that you're Frostlassing after you're taking damage from Frostlass. Like it's just spreading so much. I also think what's cool is again like the stadium that's included was Spike Moose.
Spike Myth, yeah.
Spike
Just search a Marnie card.
Yeah,
or
search
Pokemon.
Marnie's Pokemon. Right, and which is kind of underwhelming, but I view it as like, it's again in an item lock format when you might be getting item locked, is that you can just consistently chain your stage 1s, your stage 2s under item lock and just continually power them up. And also, as opposed to like an Artisan where your opponent can benefit from it as well. If your opponent's not playing a Marnie's deck, then they can't utilize it.
Yeah.
Now, if you're gonna even if they disrupt you and they KO your Grimmsnarl, they have to bump your stadium, or else you can just evolve your next Morgrim into another Grimmsnarl, right? I mean, like like I think that piece alone, honestly, like does give it a pretty good, like that small piece of an engine, like does give it a bit of an advantage, like in this format, I think as well, with so much item lock going on that we need to be ready for. So Parker, I'm not sure what your early prep was saying, but like for me, like this is a deck that I'm like actively monitoring it. I think it's real. I think that people are ready to play it and people will be playing it. And that if it's not being respected, then it could easily go and dominate the tournament.
I agree. I'm gonna be hunting for the starter decks in the wild. I do want the Stevens Metagross one too, because I actually love that card. I like Metagross, and I think it also has potential. But
I think it's very rare that all the competitive players are looking for the starter decks, but something about like 180 to the active and 30 to the bench is just really good these days, right?
yeah,
I think about it, if we were talking about this 2 years ago in like a VMAX format, like, oh, they printed a new V-Star, Grimmsnarl V-Star. Oh, it attacks your active for 180 and the bench is for 30. We'd be like, what is this doing here?
yeah.
But that's the cool part about the game, where the game changes and the way that cards interact together can change and alter. Again, I think, Marnie's Grimmsnarl just being able to thin out the energy from the deck, playing an abundance of dark energies to manually attach to Monkey Dories and power up your attacker. Again, like I said, it's a hybrid of like Charizard. You evolve it, power itself up, and then you also have a little bit of bench damage spread. So this gives you some options. All right, so I think for me, like the Marnie's Grimmsnarl deck is definitely a bustling deck, a deck that I am expecting to see on Bourbon Street. Would you say the same, Parker?
I do think so. I think strutting down the street, you'll see a Grimmsnarl and an alleyway.
Well, there we go. I think before we wrap up our Bourbon Street segment, do we just want to talk about, again, we are Pokemon players. We all enjoy playing some Pokemon. But again, we're also in a fantastic city. And Parker, wanted to ask you, what's one thing you're looking forward to in New Orleans to be able to explore when you're not playing Pokemon?
So I'm gonna be on a seafood diet. If I see food, I'm gonna eat it.
And they have good seafood too.
Yeah, unfortunately, I probably won't be eating seafood because I hate seafood. But I'm just looking forward to some good food, good atmosphere down there.
You get some jambalaya, you get a muffalata, get a po' boy, plenty of good stuff that you don't need seafood on to enjoy. Personally, for me, when I go to New Orleans, I always try to make it out sometime during the day because there's a lot of great live music going on. Really, there's live music going on pretty much all times of day, but amount of times you can just be like walking down the street, maybe on Bourbon Street, maybe next to Bourbon Street, where you're going to see in the middle of the day, just fantastic musicians and a band set up outside the Rouse's grocery store, just like playing some music, playing some standards. It's just nice to be able to like sit back and enjoy that. Go and grab a snack, go grab your lunch, sit out on the curb, listen to some music, walk to the
Some
park, see
jazz.
listen to some jazz, just hear some good music. So definitely looking forward to that. And Parker and I are definitely looking forward to seeing y'all there in New Orleans here in just a couple weeks. And also we're looking forward to having Eric Ridgway back on the podcast next week after he's done with his paternity break. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Beach Court Podcast. Thanks again so much for listening and spending your time with us. Again, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you like, what you want to see more of. We'd be happy. We always like to see your comments and see what you're thinking. Thanks everyone for sticking with us, and we'll see you back again next time.